My human traditions surprised the alien woman. The station's artificial night hummed with recycled air and distant vibrations of cargo drones docking. Aric sat cross-legged on the floor of his small quarters, a single candle standing in front of him. The flame quivered inside the stillness, a fragile thing that looked absurdly out of place among metallic walls and glowing status panels. He bowed his head, not speaking, not moving, just letting the fire breathe in his stead. The door hissed open. Lysara stepped in, armor plating catching the low light, ears tapering long and sharp like blades, softened by moonlight. She carried herself with the calm menace of someone who could lift a shuttle by its landing struts, yet her stride faltered at the sight of the candle. She tilted her head, as though assessing a hidden weapon. "What is this?" she asked, voice smooth but edged. "A candle," Aric replied, eyes still on the flame. "It is fire, inside your dwelling, on a station full of oxygen and volatile wiring. That's the general idea, yes." Her brow arched. Humans sabotage themselves for tradition? He raised his head, smiling faintly. "It's not sabotage. It's remembrance. A way to honor someone who's gone. You light the flame. You sit with it. You think of them." Lysara crouched beside the candle, her armor creaking softly. She extended a hand, then snatched it back as the heat licked her skin. "And this does what? Summons them from the void." "No, it summons me back to them, at least for a little while." She studied him as though he had just revealed a strategic flaw in his species. "You risk fire to remember. We risk plasma storms to forget. That explains why you lot don't keep scented candles in your homes," he said. The corner of her mouth twitched. She wasn't used to laughing, but the effort threatened. He set the candle on a low shelf and gestured toward the small table. "Sit, unless you prefer to hover menacingly in the doorway." Lysara sat, reluctantly unstrapping parts of her armor until she looked less like a siege engine and more like a person. The long ears framed her face with a subtle elegance that Aric noticed, but wisely didn't comment on. He poured 2 cups of tea from a dented thermos, the steam curling like miniature nebulae. She eyed the cup as though it might detonate. "What is this ritual?" "Another fire hazard." "Tea. Hot water. Dried leaves. Flavor. Comfort. No explosions. Unless you add too much sugar. Then it's questionable." She sipped carefully. Her eyes widened. "This is not terrible." High praise coming from someone who tried to duel a serving tray yesterday. "The tray attacked me first." "It reflected your face," Aric said. "That's not the same thing." Her ears flicked back, embarrassed. "Your station is full of hostile objects. Chairs with insufficient stability. Doors that open too slowly. Food that pretends to be edible. That's life among humans. Everything's a little broken, but it keeps us busy." She placed the cup down with deliberate grace, as though conceding a round in a sparring match. "And yet you survive, despite the chaos. Perhaps because of it." The candle burned between them, its flame small but insistent. Lysara kept glancing at it, as though it were a rival that refused to yield. Finally, she leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Show me again. The thing you did." Bowing. "It's not complicated." He demonstrated, lowering his head toward the flame. She copied him, stiff at first, then softer, her long ears dipping like banners in surrender. The silence wrapped around them. She peeked at him from the corner of her eye. "Am I doing it correctly? Or does your tradition forbid warriors from slouching?" "You're fine," he said. "Tradition's flexible. Except during Christmas. Then everything's chaos." She frowned. "What is Christmas?" "Oh, you'll love that one. It involves decorative trees, gaudy lights, and a large man who breaks into your home to leave gifts." Her eyes sharpened. "An intruder is celebrated?" "Yes, with milk and cookies." She sat back, muttering. Humans are either brilliant or entirely deranged. "Why not both?" Aric said, sipping his tea. The candle flickered, its light painting their faces with warmth that metal walls could never produce. Lysara reached toward it again, slower this time, and let the heat brush her fingertips. She didn't flinch. Instead, she whispered, "Teach me." Aric looked at her, at the warrior who commanded fleets, yet bent toward a flame, as though it carried the universe inside it. He nodded. All right, but next time, we try marshmallows. That's another fire-related human tradition you need to survive. Her ears perked, uncertain. Marsh what? Exactly, he said, smiling. Lysara had faced asteroid sieges, ion storms, and the occasional assassination attempt during treaty signings, but nothing unnerved her quite like the cafeteria. The station's mess hall was a cavern of clattering trays, sizzling machines, and smells that seemed to come from 17 different species all at once. Aric guided her through the line, holding his tray like a shield. Start simple, he said, pointing at a steaming pan. Mashed potatoes. Staple food. Comfort on a plate. Lysara squinted at the pale mound. It resembles insulation foam. True, but it tastes better. Usually. She poked a portion with her fork once they sat. The fork bent. She lifted the utensil, unimpressed. This is not food. This is an engineered trap. It's not a trap, Aric said, already halfway through his portion. It's starch. Humans practically run on it. Some cultures even fight wars over potatoes. Wars over roots, she muttered, staring at the pale blob. Your people are stranger than I imagined. Stranger in a charming way, I hope. Stranger in a concerning way, she corrected, though her ears twitched in amusement. He nudged her plate. Try before you declare war on it. That's another human tradition, giving things a chance. She lifted a small bite, sniffed it, then chewed reluctantly. Her expression shifted from suspicion to bewilderment. It is soft, deceptively harmless, and oddly satisfying. Congratulations. You've survived your first mashed potato skirmish. She smirked. Victory tastes bland. Add gravy, Aric said, pouring some from a jug. Everything tastes better drowned in sauce. When she tried it again, her eyes widened slightly, though she pretended not to care. This flavor has depth, almost like mineral broth from my homeworld. See, not so bad. I will allow it to live, she declared, setting down her fork like a commander sparing a defeated foe. The rest of the cafeteria watched her cautiously. A 7-foot warrior with ears like battle standards was not an everyday sight, especially when she dissected mashed potatoes like alien technology. One mechanic whispered to another, "Is she going to fight the food?" Lysara heard and glared, silencing the entire room. Aric leaned closer, maybe toned down the intimidation. Humans tend to choke when stared at by apex predators. I was merely adjusting my gaze, she said, ears flicking back. Your gaze could melt steel. Then perhaps your furniture should be nervous. They left the cafeteria with a trail of hushed conversations behind them. Aric tried to steer her attention toward calmer territory. Next tradition, cocoa. It's liquid happiness. They found a vending unit along the promenade. Aric pressed a sequence, and a steaming cup emerged. He handed it to her carefully. Sip slowly. It's hot. She sniffed it, suspicious again. It smells like melted sweetness. That's the idea. Marshmallows optional. Explain marshmallows. They're like edible clouds. She frowned, ears twitching. Clouds are not edible. You'll see. He dropped one into her cup. It bobbed, then slowly melted. She sipped. Her eyes closed instantly. Her whole posture shifted, as if someone had slipped a tranquilizer into her armor. What is this sorcery? Cocoa. Welcome to humanity's greatest invention. This could disarm fleets, she murmured. You could conquer my people with this drink. Good to know. I'll keep that in mind if negotiations go south. She ignored his joke, taking another sip, then another. When she finally opened her eyes, she said, I may never forgive you for this. You have exposed a weakness in me. He grinned. Consider it revenge for you making me lift those ridiculous training weights last week. You barely moved them an inch. Exactly. I need cocoa just to recover. Her laughter startled even herself. It was rough and short, like an old engine kicking to life, but genuine. Aric leaned back, savoring the rare sound. You should laugh more. It suits you. Her ears flushed slightly, and she quickly deflected. Do not grow comfortable. My amusement does not mean surrender. Of course not. It just means you're human adjacent now. Human adjacent, she repeated, as if testing the weight of it. They wandered the promenade, neon lights reflecting off the polished deck. Traders barked in half a dozen languages, selling plasma rifles beside candied fruit. The chaos of it all made Lysara's head turn constantly. This place is madness, she said. It's home, Aric replied. It smells like oil, sugar, and fear. Yeah, home. They stopped at a viewport overlooking the planet below, its surface wrapped in clouds glowing with the shimmer of city grids. The candlelight of billions spread across continents, fragile against the dark. Lysara stared at it, ears angled forward. So many tiny fires, all surviving together. Exactly, he said. That's what I was trying to show you with the candle. Small things matter. They add up. She didn't answer, but her hand brushed the glass, as if she could feel the world's warmth through the void. After a long silence, she muttered, Teach me more of these small things. Perhaps they are not so small. Aric nodded. Tomorrow we try pizza. She narrowed her eyes. Is that another weapon disguised as food? It's both. Excellent, she said, finally smiling. Aric hadn't planned on teaching Lysara how to celebrate a birthday. It happened by accident, the way most important things seem to happen between them. He was rummaging through his storage locker, pulling out a small box wrapped in paper that had seen better days, when she appeared in the doorway. You are hoarding contraband, she said flatly. It's not contraband. It's a gift. Her ears angled suspiciously. A gift? For whom? For you. It's your birthday, right? She blinked. My what? You know, the day you were born. My people do not mark such days. Birth is common. Death is common. Why mark one and not the other? Because life deserves celebrating. He held the box out. Go on. It won't explode. She took it cautiously, sniffed it, and gave the paper a sharp tug. It shredded instantly, revealing a small bracelet made of woven threads and a few polished beads that shimmered faintly under the light. She stared at it as though he'd handed her a piece of alien technology. What does it do? She asked. It doesn't do anything. It just is. Something to wear, to remind you that someone thought of you. Her ears tilted back, uncertain. This is inefficient. Yeah, he said with a grin. That's the point. Humans are really good at inefficient things. She slid the bracelet over her wrist, staring at it for a long moment before finally muttering. It is not entirely displeasing. That's the nicest thing you've ever said about one of my traditions. Before she could reply, the station's alarm klaxon blared, lights flashing crimson along the corridors. A voice crackled through the comms. Unscheduled warp disturbance detected. All non-essential personnel remain in quarters. Lysara was already on her feet, armor plates sliding into place as if summoned by instinct. This is not natural. Disturbances of that magnitude do not occur near trade routes. Aric followed her to the nearest viewport. Outside, space rippled like disturbed water, and a vessel emerged from the distortion. It wasn't like the sleek cruisers Lysara commanded or the patched-together freighters that limped through the station. This ship was jagged, dark, and bristling with weapons that hummed with unfamiliar energy. Friend of yours? Aric asked. No, she said, her voice hardening. Not friend. Predator. The ship drifted closer, ignoring hails from station control. Energy signatures flared across its hull. Lysara's hand went to the hilt of her blade. Aric sighed. And here I thought birthdays were supposed to be peaceful. Perhaps for humans, she said, her long ears stiffening. For me, this is tradition. The vessel launched a probing beam, scanning the station's defenses. Panic rippled through the promenade as civilians scattered. Lysara turned to Aric. Stay here. Not a chance. You'll need someone to explain human stubbornness if they try negotiating. Or someone to trip over cables while I fight. Either way, I'm useful. They reached the command deck, where the station's officers were frantically coordinating defenses. Lysara strode past them, her presence silencing the room. She studied the tactical displays, then pointed sharply. Their shields are harmonic, primitive but layered. Your weapons will glance off unless you disrupt the sequence. One officer frowned. And you know this how? Because I fought them before, she said, and lived. The room went quiet. Aric looked at her. You've been holding out on me. She ignored him, tapping the console. Target the node clusters along their starboard flank. That will open them. The officer scrambled to obey. Aric leaned closer. So what's the plan if that doesn't work? Then I board them. Of course you do. The station's cannons fired, streaks of plasma tearing through the void. The hostile ship shuddered, its shields flickering as Lysara predicted. For a moment, hope surged. Then the vessel retaliated, unleashing a barrage that rocked the station, sending sparks raining across the deck. Aric grabbed the rail, muttering, I really preferred the candle ritual. You adapt quickly, she said, steadying herself. I adapt when being vaporized is the alternative. Another blast shook the station. Systems flickered, alarms howled, and the officers scrambled to contain the damage. Lysara stood unshaken, eyes locked on the enemy vessel. She turned to Aric, her voice low. If they breach, I need you to stay close. Close as in safe, or close as in probably regretting my life choices? Yes, she said simply, and strode toward the hangar. He groaned but followed, muttering under his breath. Happy birthday, indeed. They reached the hangar just as the hostile ship launched boarding pods. The sleek cylinders slammed into the outer hull, drilling through with mechanical precision. Lysara drew her blade, its edge glowing with charged energy, while Aric grabbed the nearest thing resembling a weapon, a heavy wrench. She glanced at it, ears twitching. You intend to duel invaders with plumbing equipment. It's called improvisation. She almost smiled. Then let us improvise together. The first pod burst open, and armored figures poured out, weapons blazing. Lysara surged forward like a storm, her blade cutting arcs of light through the air. Aric ducked behind cover, swinging his wrench at anything that got too close. One unlucky invader went down clutching his helmet, groaning. See, Aric shouted over the chaos. Wrench works. Do not become overconfident, Lysara warned, even as she cleaved through two more attackers. Don't worry. Confidence isn't my strong suit. As the battle raged, the candle flame from Aric's quarters flickered quietly in the back of his mind. Fragile, stubborn, refusing to be snuffed out, just like them. The hangar smelled of scorched metal and adrenaline, if such a thing had a scent. Lysara moved like a living weapon, cutting through the boarding party with a precision that left even the station's defense crews staring wide-eyed. Aric, meanwhile, kept swinging his wrench at anything that looked unfriendly. By the time the last invader dropped, his arm was aching, and his weapon was bent at a very suspicious angle. He leaned against a crate, panting. You know, in human tradition, birthdays involve cake, not boarding parties. Lysara flicked alien blood from her blade, ears twitching. Cake sounds less efficient, but more appealing. One of the officers approached, still shaken. They'll regroup. We can't take another wave like that. Lysara studied the tactical display on her gauntlet. They are testing you. They want to know if this station is worth conquering. We must convince them it is not. Aric wiped sweat from his forehead. Any chance convincing them involves talking? She glanced at him. You could try. They might find your stubbornness amusing before vaporizing you. Comforting. He tightened his grip on the bent wrench. All right, plan B it is. The enemy ship loomed outside the hangar window, its jagged silhouette blotting out stars. Energy built along its hull, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lysara frowned. They are preparing a resonance strike. Your shields will not hold. The officer stammered. What do we do? Fight chaos with chaos, she said. Aric groaned. That's not a plan. That's a slogan. Then it is a human tradition, she shot back, ears flicking in amusement. The boarding pods began retracting, pulled back toward the Predator ship. Lysara seized the moment. We must strike them before they strike us. Aric frowned. You mean board their ship? That's your idea of fun. Fun is irrelevant. Victory is required. Moments later, they were inside a small assault craft, stolen from the hangar. Aric strapped himself in, muttering, "This is officially the worst birthday party in history." Lysara piloted with unnerving calm, weaving between bursts of enemy fire. The craft jolted as they clipped a plasma beam, sparks showering over Aric's lap. He flinched. "You're sure you know how to fly this thing?" "I once flew a cruiser through the rings of Carthos during a meteor storm," she said. "Did you survive?" Her ears twitched. "Obviously." The Predator's ship grew larger in the viewport, its hull bristling with jagged structures that looked more like fangs than metal. Lysara guided their craft toward a docking seam. Aric clutched his wrench like a talisman. "Remind me again why I'm here." "Because you lit a candle and I touched the flame," she said simply. "Now we fight together." The docking clamps engaged with a metallic thunk. The hatch opened into darkness. The corridor beyond pulsed with dim, organic light, like veins carrying energy through a living thing. Aric shivered. "Great. We're inside a space carnivore." "Stay close," she ordered, stepping forward. They crept through the vessel, passing walls that hummed like a heartbeat. Strange symbols flickered along the surfaces, unreadable but menacing. Aric muttered, "If these things have bathrooms, I don't want to see them." Lysara ignored him, scanning with her gauntlet. "The resonance core is ahead. If we disable it, their strike fails." Disable as in push a button, or disable as in blow everything up and hope for the best? Her ears twitched. Yes, the core chamber loomed ahead, a cavern of swirling energy, suspended by spines of black metal. Dozens of enemy soldiers guarded it. Lysara readied her blade, but Aric grabbed her arm. "Wait, we can't just charge in. You have an alternative?" He looked at the bent wrench, then at the energy conduits running along the walls. "Maybe. Humans are good at breaking things they don't understand." Minutes later, chaos erupted. Aric had jammed his wrench into a humming conduit, causing sparks to cascade like fireworks. Alarms shrieked. The soldiers scattered, unsure if the failure was internal sabotage or malfunction. In the confusion, Lysara leapt into the fray, her blade carving through defenses, while Aric yanked wires free and prayed the whole ship didn't explode around them. Energy sputtered, the resonance field collapsing in a storm of wild arcs. Lysara pulled him back toward the corridor as the chamber erupted. The walls shook, the ship groaning like a wounded beast. They sprinted toward their craft, alarms echoing. Aric shouted over the din, "Next year, can we just do balloons and streamers?" She laughed, breathless. "Perhaps." They launched from the Predator ship just as its systems overloaded, the explosion rippling outward in waves of fractured light. The station cheered their return, officers hailing them as heroes. Aric collapsed in his seat, hair singed, wrench still sparking. "I think I preferred mashed potatoes." Lysara removed her helmet, ears flicking as she smiled faintly. "Yet you survived. And you made Chaos your ally." "Chaos and I go way back," he said. The stars steadied outside, the Predator's ship reduced to drifting fragments. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Lysara lifted her wrist, the woven bracelet catching the light. "You called this a gift," she said softly. "Now I understand. It is not efficient, but it is everything." Aric grinned despite his exhaustion. "Careful. You're starting to sound human." "Human adjacent," she corrected, but her ears betrayed her with a twitch of amusement. The station took days to recover. Panels were patched, alarms silenced, and the smell of scorched wiring finally faded from the air recyclers. Aric walked the promenade like a man who had been handed survival as an unexpected gift. Everywhere he went, people nodded, whispered, or raised cups in his direction. He wasn't a soldier, yet somehow, his bent wrench had earned him more fame than he ever wanted. Lysara, meanwhile, was summoned to speak with the council. Rumors spread quickly. Her people demanded answers. Some claimed she'd gone soft among humans. Others whispered she had found something worth more than conquest. When she returned from the council chamber, her expression was unreadable. Aric leaned against a railing, sipping tea that still tasted faintly of machine oil. "So, verdict?" Do they exile you, promote you, or ask you to conquer Earth out of spite? She stopped beside him, ears flicking as though tuning to a frequency only she could hear. They questioned me. They doubted me. And yet, she turned her wrist, showing the bracelet he'd given her. I told them strength is not diminished by learning. They did not understand, but they listened. That's practically a miracle. Perhaps, she said, or perhaps they realized survival sometimes requires inefficiency. He chuckled. You make it sound noble. Really, it's just stubbornness with better marketing. They sat in silence, watching ships glide into the docks. After a long while, she asked, when you bowed before the candle, what did you feel? He considered. Small, but also connected, like every flame ever lit was keeping me company. She absorbed this, then asked, and when I touched the flame, what did you see? He smiled faintly. A warrior who'd burned through stars and still found wonder in something so fragile. That's rarer than any victory. Her ears lowered slightly, a gesture he had come to recognize as vulnerability. I did not expect your traditions to strike me so deeply. We conquer with weapons. You conquer with softness. Softness is underrated, he said. It sneaks past armor. She laughed quietly, a sound that no longer startled her. Then you have conquered me. He raised his teacup in mock solemnity. Victory achieved with marshmallows and potatoes. Future historians will be very confused. But not all was laughter. The council sent her new orders. She was to return to her fleet. Duty still called, though its tone had shifted. She did not argue. Warriors rarely did. Instead, she walked with Aric to his quarters, where the candle still sat unburnt. He lit it again. The flame flickered, fragile as before. She watched it carefully, then placed her hand over his. Together they bowed. Silence stretched between them, but it was no longer awkward. It was filled with everything they had endured: boarding parties, cocoa discoveries, explosions, and laughter. When they rose, she whispered, "Teach me always, even if distance separates us." "You'll come back," he said with quiet certainty. Her long ears tilted forward, the closest thing she had to a promise. Yes. The day she left, the hangar was crowded with onlookers. She wore her armor, but the bracelet gleamed against the steel. Aric stood apart, arms folded, pretending the lump in his throat was just recycled air clogging the filters. She approached, leaning close enough for her ears to brush his hair. "Do not start wars over roots while I am gone." "I'll try," he said, "but no promises." Her smile was brief but real. Then she boarded her shuttle, and the hatch sealed. The ship rose, engines humming, and slipped into the black. Aric remained at the viewport until the glow vanished among the stars. He returned to his quarters, sat before the candle, and bowed his head. This time, he didn't bow alone. Somewhere in the void, a warrior with long ears was doing the same. The flame wavered but held steady, stubborn against the endless dark. The end.